We're having a great discussion on the potential upcoming travel ban.
When people talk shit.
Okay, that's from TikTok. So we're going to go live on TikTok as well. Wonderful. Hello, everyone. I hope you can all see us and hear us very well. If you can see me and hear me, please drop the US flag in the comment section or type USA or drop the US flag. If you can hear me and see me well, please do that for me so that we can get started. And of course, share the live feed in your stories, on your groups. You never know who may need our assistance or who needs to hear this information that we're about to share. So we're going to get started now. We're going to be discussing a very important topic. As always, we discuss really important topics. You all know that there may be, there is a potential ban coming up, and we want to discuss what the ban means, who is going to affect, and just everything about the upcoming travel bans. Travel bans meaning if you are coming into the United States, then you could face some restrictions depending on the country you're from. Okay, so depending on your country and depending on the type of visa or the type of status that you have as an immigrant in the United States. So let's get started. Let's talk about how many bans there have been so far. Okay, how many bans have there been so far? President Trump, as you guys know, this is his second term as a US president. And in his first term, he had 4 different US travel bans. What people call travel ban 1.0, travel ban 2.0, we had travel ban 3.0, and then travel ban 4.0. We've shared infographics about each of these travel bans, and each of them had affected different countries. They had different scopes. Travel ban 1.0 was struck down by the courts. Travel ban 2.0 was also struck down by the courts. Travel ban 3.0 was declared or upheld to be lawful by the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Roberts said this was squarely within the law, and he upheld travel ban 3.0. Travel ban 4 just expanded on travel ban 3.0. So we're going to be using travel ban 3.0, 4.0 as a reference point to answer some questions that we have been getting concerning the potential upcoming travel ban, which we can call 5.0. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you. Let's get started. Let's go into travel ban 3.0. Again, we're going to be focusing on 3.0 and 4.0 because travel ban 1.2, 1.0, 2.0 were struck down by the court. Okay, so let's see. Okay, I think I have, let me go to this other, let's start with this. I'm sharing my screen on LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. And so if you want to see my screen, then you can join from those platforms. Just search Ekepokolo on YouTube or Facebook and you'll find us live. Okay, so here we go. And of course, as usual, drop your questions. We'll be answering questions, as many questions as possible, to get clarity on the many things that are happening in US immigration law. Okay, drop your US flag. If you can hear me well, see me well, drop your US flag, type USA in the comment section. Okay, and then let me get the green flag or the green light to get started. YouTube, just Ekepokolo. If you search Ekepokolo, you'll find us, or American Immigration TV on YouTube. Okay, now let's look at who was covered by travel ban 3.0, okay, before it was expanded. Let me zoom in so you guys can see the screen really well. Travel ban 3.0, Libya, Yemen, Iran, North Korea and Syria, Somalia, and then we also have Venezuela. These were the original owners of travel ban 3.0. Now, if you look at travel ban 3.0, let's also look at who did it affect. Who did it affect? The ban was effective from December, I believe, 2017. Yes, December 2017. And these bans affected people differently depending on what kind of status or immigration status that you had. It affected you differently. Okay, so for people from Libya and Yemen, it affected all immigrants and those who were entering as tourists or business travelers. And so it did not affect non-immigrants. If you were coming in as a student, if you were coming in as a temporary worker, let's say an H-1B visa holder, it did not affect you. For Iran, it affected all immigrants and non-immigrants except students. So for Iran, they bundled everybody up together, immigrants, non-immigrants, and then excluded students. However, the students had to undergo additional scrutiny. Okay, maybe I should go back and explain, who immigrants are, who non-immigrants are. Okay, who is an immigrant? Immigrants refer to people who are seeking admission to the United States on a permanent basis through three main routes. First, they are coming in through the family-based route. Number two, through employment, or number three, through the diversity visa lottery program. Those are immigrants because they're coming in to live and work here permanently. And the ban affected people from those countries who were coming in to come and live and work in the United States. And let's go on to non-immigrants. Many of you already know who non-immigrants are. Let me see what's going on with my screen. Non-immigrants refers to people who are coming into the United States on a temporary basis. I'm not sure why my screen is not moving. I'm trying to scroll down. Is it because of the Zoom? Let's see. Okay. All right. Okay. So it refers to people who are seeking admission to the United States on a temporary basis, meaning they're coming in for a short period of time and then they'll leave. Business visitors, tourists, students, exchange students, scholars, and temporary workers. Okay. Now let's continue. So for Libya and Yemen, we had all immigrants affected and those who were coming in as tourists or business travelers. Iran, all immigrants, not all non-immigrants, exception students, but they had to face additional scrutiny, extra questions. They would look more into, their documents, their backgrounds, what they were trying to do before they were allowed into the United States. North Korea and Syria, all immigrants and non-immigrants under travel ban 3.0, they were also banned from entering the United States. So if your mother had applied for a green card for you through consular processing, and your mother is a US citizen in the United States, and you are, let's say, the married daughter of a US citizen under the F3 category, you were based in Syria, and you received your immigrant's visa, that's a form I-551 stamp in your passport, or the stamp I-551, which is the equivalent of a green card, but this is in your stamp, in your passport as a stamp. If you receive this, then you were not allowed to come into the United States. Guys, there's never any green cards that are issued outside the US. All green cards are issued inside or within the United States. If you're outside, you get an immigrant visa. Once you come in, then your green card will be mailed to you at your address. Okay. So for Somalia, immigrants and non-immigrants were banned, and non-immigrants were subject to extra scrutiny. For Venezuela, no non-immigrants ban, no non-immigrants ban. Venezuela's ban was a little more restricted. It was certain non-immigrant government officials and their family members. Those were banned for Venezuela. So as you can see, For travel ban 3.0, it was country specific. Each country had the categories of people that were supposed to be banned from coming into the United States. Okay, so let's now go to travel ban. Let's see here. What's going on? Okay, let's see. My screen is messing up. Let me just share it again. Hold on. Then we can go back to the expansion of the travel ban 3.0 to see who it's affected. And then we can get into the current upcoming travel ban. And I'm not sure why my screen is acting up. Okay, perfect. We're here now. Okay, so this is for travel ban 4.0. And this was, I believe, January 31st, 2020, the final travel ban, January 31st, 2020. That was when it was instated. Okay, so now let me share the screen here and let's get into that. Okay, so with travel ban 4.0, as I stated, there was, just an expansion. And so these additional 6 countries were added to the previous countries that were already banned. The first is Kyrgyzstan. All immigrants were banned except special immigrants whose eligibility was based on having provided assistance to the US government. If you look at the expansion, it actually covered all immigrants for all the countries, the additional countries, apart from Sudan and Tanzania. So for Nigeria, all immigrants were banned. Kyrgyzstan, all immigrants. Myanmar or Burma, all immigrants were barred. Eritrea, all immigrants were barred. But what they did was they exempted people who had provided assistance to the US government in the past. They were not banned from coming into the US, right? They want to reward people for their loyalty and service to the United States. If there's one thing you know about the United States, they like to reward service to the country, veterans and things like that. So if you had served or provided assistance to the US government, then you were not banned. Okay, so all these 6 countries, all immigrants were banned apart from Sudan and I believe Tanzania. For Sudan, it was immigrants under the diversity visa lottery program that were banned. And then for Tanzania, also immigrants under the diversity visa lottery program that were banned. All other immigrants, if you were coming in through employment or you were coming in through your family from Sudan or Tanzania, then you were not banned. So now, having said that, let's move on to the current what's going to happen currently. Hold on again. Let me pull up this screen here. We're going to go into some questions about who could be affected, what's the scope of the ban. Again, we obviously don't have the information about who is going to be specifically affected, but we're looking at the previous Trump bans to help us plan and determine, okay, these people could potentially be affected. What should they do? What should they not do? Okay, now look at the scope. When there's a travel ban that is put in place by the administration, what happens is that there is a scope of the ban, there's an effective date, there are the countries that the ban affects, there's a type of visas the type of visas that the ban affects. There's also what's called exemptions, and then there are waivers to the ban. Before we look at the scope of the ban, some of the questions that we get is why this ban? What's going on? Why this ban? The basis of the ban, again, is one executive order. I believe is the Protecting the United States from Foreign Terrorists and Other National Security and Public Safety Threats. We discussed this executive order a week or two ago right here and we looked at why they're trying to instate a travel ban. In that travel executive order, Section 2 stated that the US was going to identify countries throughout the world for which vetting and screening information is so deficient as to warrant a partial or full suspension on the admission of nationals from those countries. And so from there, you can tell that the countries that are going to be selected, it means that their vetting and screening information is so deficient, so deficient. What does that mean? We'll look at what that means very soon. But some of these countries usually have errors in their vetting and screening information for passports and for, there's fraud involved in their, when they apply for immigration applications, there's fraud involved. Some provide false information, as others make unverifiable claims in applications for immigration benefits. And then there's also a lack of identity. There's the identity management is not top notch as what the US would want. They would want, they want to be able to determine that if somebody says they are this person, they are actually this person. Vetting and screening must be to the highest maximum by these various countries so that the US can trust the information that they provide them. Again, information sharing protocols and procedures. They want to find out more about individuals from these countries, things like that. If there's lack of passport control, just anybody can go into some of these countries and obtain their passports. Anybody can go citizenship acquisition. If anybody can just go into these countries and obtain their citizenship, then the US finds that there's a problem there, and that's the basis of the ban. Majority of the countries, some of the countries, I would say even the previous bans, majority of the countries were determined to be Muslim countries and, low-income countries from Africa as well. And so the critics have argued that the bans are just discriminatory based on religion, based on income levels. But these are the reasons that the US is pretty much given to justify the bans, just vetting and screening, that is deficient. Now let's look at the scope. Let's go back to the scope of the bans, potentially. When the ban is instated, then it will affect those who are outside the United States on the applicable effective date. And so under this, as you know, if you have a valid visa, if you have a valid immigrant visa, tourist visa, and you intend to come into the US, and especially if you are from these, countries, the 43 countries draft list that we have, then you may want to enter the US before the ban is imposed. Number two, the ban will also affect or apply to foreign nationals of designated countries who do not have a valid visa on the applicable effective date. So on the date the ban is made effective, if you don't have a valid visa, then you are out of time. All right, now let's move on to the exemptions. When there's again a travel ban, there's a Federal Register notice that will give us the details of which countries are designated to be banned from the US and who should be exempt from the ban. Exemption means that the ban will not apply to these people, although ordinarily they should be impacted because they come from the designated countries. The ban should not apply to them because they are exempt. Number one, green card holders or lawful permanent residents. So if you are from a designated country, let's say you're from, let's say Venezuela, or let me see, what are some of the countries? Bhutan, let's see. I believe there was Iraq, there was Afghanistan, on the new travel ban that could be coming. Again, that's not the final list. Okay, I have the list here pulled up. We have Afghanistan, Bhutan, according to the New York Times, Cuba, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, Yemen for the red list. Okay, so for the red list, all travel banned. Now, if this happens, then it's likely that green card holders who have example from Afghanistan will be exempt from the travel ban. Previous travel ban exempted green card holders. The previous travel ban that was upheld as lawful, it exempted green card holders. So green card holders could potentially be exempt. Then foreign nationals who are admitted to or paroled into the US after the applicable effective date. If you're a foreign national and you are admitted or you're paroled into the US, it means that you are exempt from the ban, and the ban does not affect you, obviously, or does not apply to you, obviously. The third group of people, foreign nationals who have a document other than a visa. Okay, so they have a transportation letter, boarding foil, advance parole document. Those people also, once they have those documents that are valid on the applicable effective date of the ban, they are still allowed to come inside the US, even if it's issued after. Okay, so boarding foil, for example, if you lose your green card, you're outside the United States, then you can apply for a boarding foil in certain circumstances with the US Embassy. And the transportation letter, I believe it applies to people who are coming into the, it has to do with they're near the maritime. Let me see if I can pull that information up again momentarily. Hold on. I put this down here. Let's see if I can find it and tell you about what the transportation, so the transportation letter, the transportation worker identification credential, that's also known as the TWIC, is required by the Maritime Transportation Security Act for workers who need access to secure areas of US's maritime facilities and vessels. So you need that kind of letter or credential to access the US maritime area. Okay, so that's the transportation letter. If you have that, then you have that which is valid on the date of the ban, or it's issued anytime thereafter, you are still exempt from the travel ban. The next group of people are dual nationals who are traveling on a passport that's issued by a non-designated country. So, for example, if Afghanistan is banned and you are a national of Afghanistan and Ghana, and you're traveling on your Ghana passport, which, Ghana has never been banned under any of the travel bans, then you are exempt. Even though you come from Afghanistan, which is banned, you're traveling on your non-designated passport, which is Ghana. And so you will be allowed to enter as being exempt from the travel ban. Okay. Then foreign nationals who are coming in on diplomatic visas, they are also exempt. Foreign nationals who have been granted asylum in the US, they've been admitted, or individuals who have been granted withholding of removal, advance parole, protection under the Convention Against Torture. So those people were exempt from the travel ban that was upheld previously under Trump. Now let's look at waivers. Who does the waivers apply to, or what does that mean? When there's a travel ban and it applies to certain groups of people, the waivers, it means that there are people that the ban applies to, but they can actually ask for some exemption or grace to say, look, I know the ban applies to me, but for X, Y, and Z reason, please take me out of the ban, or don't apply the ban to me. Okay, so under this, you can file a waiver if you are from one of the designated countries and you are not exempt. Then you could file a waiver if you can show to the consular officer who interviews you, or to the CBP officer, that number one, if they deny you entry, it will cause you hardship. Number 2, your entry will not pose a threat to national security and public safety of the United States. And number 3, your entry would be in the national interest. And waivers would usually be discretionary, okay? They're discretionary, meaning you are not guaranteed an entry. It's just, they're just going to do you a favor if they decide that they're going to allow you or approve they're going to allow you to enter the United States. Okay. Now let's continue to look at the waivers. Foreign national, where they'll grant waivers, where the foreign national has been previously admitted to the US. Let's say as a student, they've been here for a continuous period of work or study or long-term activity, and they were outside the US on the applicable effective date of the ban, and they're seeking to re-enter to continue that activity. And if they deny them entry, it will disturb or impair that activity. Then a waiver could be considered. Where you're a foreign national, you are part of the designated countries, and you have previously established significant contacts with the US, but you are outside the US on the applicable effective dates for work, study, or other lawful activity. So you're here, let's say you are on an H-1B visa from one of the designated countries, let's say Afghanistan again, or even Libya, and you can show that you are trying to come back into the United States. You have established significant contacts with the US, right? So maybe you've been working, you have a lot of ties in the US, you have a house or whatever it is, and you can show that you're coming to continue work, study, or another lawful activity. The third is where the foreign national seeks to enter for significant business or professional obligations. Denial would impair or disturb those activities. If you're a foreign national coming in and you're coming in for significant business, okay? So significant business means just that. So a multi-million-dollar deal, professional obligations, you're coming in for meetings or something professional, and the ban could disturb those obligations, then a waiver could be applied for. If you are coming into the US to visit or reside, I believe that's the fourth ground for waiver, with your close family member, spouse, child, parent who's a US citizen or green card holder, and the denial will cause undue hardship, then the consular officer or CBP officer can decide that although you are from a designated country, you should be allowed to enter the United States. Where the foreign national is an infant, a young child, adoptee, an individual, if they need urgent medical care, or someone whose entry is justified by special circumstances. So if it's a child from, let's say, North Korea, right? North Korea or Somalia, who are all on the red list, the proposed draft list, and you are very sick, you need urgent medical care, then they could consider you for a waiver. If you have any other special circumstances, you have to demonstrate it to the consular officer to show why you should be admitted into the US despite the ban on your country. The next ground is if you're a foreign national, you can document that you've provided faithful and valuable service to the US government. Then they will reward you by exempting you from or granting you a waiver from the travel ban, even if you are from one of the designated countries. Okay, let's jump to the last two. If you're a Canadian permanent resident, you've applied for a visa, and you applied in Canada, then you could be granted a waiver. And then if you're coming in as a US government-sponsored exchange visitor, J1 visa, you're coming in as an intern, a scholar, trainee, and the program is sponsored by the US government. Maybe you're a Fulbright scholar or one of those things sponsored by the US government, then you could be allowed to come in, even though you could be from one of the designated countries. If the foreign national is traveling to the US at the request of the US government department agency for legitimate law enforcement, foreign policy, or national security purposes, then there is a waiver also there. Okay, now let's take a look at this information here. Let me see. Let's see if we can find some of the bases. Well, maybe I won't share the screen on that one, but I looked up the previous travel bans, the executive, the Federal Register, and they listed, I believe it was travel ban 3.0, they listed all the countries that had been banned, and they gave the basis for the ban. Now, if you go through it, all of them had to do with concerns with terrorism, public safety, because these countries were deemed to be associated with um, terrorists. Okay, so I found it right here. I believe it was ban 2.0. I looked up the Federal Register. They mentioned Iran, said that it had been designated as a state sponsor of terrorism since 1984. Libya was an active combat zone. Let's see here. Let me see if I'm still on Facebook. Okay, there you go. Libya, there were violent extremist groups in Libya. Somalia also, it was a terrorist safe haven for Al-Shabaab and Al-Qaeda affiliated terrorists. And so I picked this up from the Federal Register notice, which publishes regulations before they go live, right? Or to say that, okay, this is effective. So this is when the travel ban was instated under travel ban 2.0. The basis for the selected countries, why their nationals were banned from entering the US. Syria, they said it was a designated state sponsor of terrorism since 1979. Yemen, there was ongoing conflicts between the government and Houthi-led opposition. They mentioned ISIS and a bunch of things. So all these countries, the US was concerned that they were associated in some way or facilitating terrorism or supporting them or whatever. But again, we are yet to see what the government will say concerning the potential upcoming ban if it is instated. Let's see. Okay, so now we're going to go into the New York Times article really briefly, and then we can jump into other questions and things like that. If you have questions, you can drop them and I will do my best to respond to those questions. Okay. Now let's share this here. We're expecting, according to reports, the updated list to be shared today. All right, so this is the draft list for the new travel ban. It targets 43 countries. If you looked at the draft list that I shared with the other travel bans, 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, travel ban 1.0, I believe just had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 countries. Travel ban 2.0 had 8 countries. Travel ban 3.0 had 8 countries, and then travel ban 4.0, which expanded on 3.0, had 6 additional countries, so 14 countries under the last one. Okay, but with this one, 43 countries. Obviously, there are some of the countries that have been given a warning and they're supposed to fix their issues before they can be considered to be taken off the list. So let's go here. So the red list countries that we have where all travel will be banned. I already read the list: Afghanistan, Bhutan, Cuba, Iran, Libya, North Korea, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, Venezuela, Yemen. There are reports that Bhutan has been taken off the list, and there've been some adjustments. Again, it's a proposed draft list, so obviously cannot be or will not necessarily be the final. All travel banned. All travel banned means, no, they are not going to allow people from those countries to come. But as I mentioned, there will likely be exemptions. There will likely be waivers, and there'll likely be what is the scope. If you already have a visa, they are going to determine, okay, people with valid visas who fall within a certain category could come in or whatever. So it remains to be seen what the final outcome will be. Okay, my screen is not sharing. I'm not sure if you guys can see. Yeah, unfortunately, there's a there's an issue with that. I don't know why this isn't sharing anymore. Oh, okay, there's a problem reloading the page. Okay, well, let's continue our discussion with the orange code orange, right? So we have 3 tiers of restricted travel. Red is all travel banned. Code orange, visas are going to be sharply restricted. And then yellow, they have 60 days to address concern. With code orange, we have Belarus, Eritrea, Haiti, Laos, Myanmar, Pakistan, Russia, Sierra Leone, South Sudan, Turkmenistan. And so visas sharply restricted, it could impact both immigrants' visas, non-immigrants' visas. From what we saw in the previous travel ban, for some countries, it was all immigrant visas. Last travel ban that was upheld, non-immigrant visas were not included. We don't know if that's going to be the same thing, but okay. Visas will be sharply restricted right there. Then the final countries, let me just stop sharing because it's not loading here. Then with the final countries under yellow, we have a lot of African countries are here. Angola, Antigua and Barbuda, Benin, Burkina Faso, Cambodia, Cameroon, Cape Verde, Chad, Republic of Congo, Democratic Republic of Congo, Dominica, Equatorial Guinea, Gambia, Liberia, Malawi, Mali, Mauritania, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, Sao Tome and Principe, Vanuatu, Zimbabwe, under the yellow ban. They have 60 days to address concerns. That's the warning shots that have been fired. So you are given 60 days. If you don't address concern, partial or full suspension. Okay, so there's likely going to be 2 groups: people who have partial suspensions, people who are going to have full suspensions of their nationals. All right. Okay, and if you look at the article about which this, the draft list was released, the New York Times says that officials at embassies and in regional bureaus at the State Department and other departments, they've been reviewing the draft and they're proposing or they're providing comments about whether descriptions of deficiencies in particular countries are accurate, number one, or whether there are policy reasons to reconsider including some. Now, the policy reasons they're talking about, like not risking disruption to cooperation on some other priority. So if the US has some serious business with you, they're benefiting from you in some way, then they don't want to risk cooperation on some other priority, then they could decide to reconsider you. You see how life works? Yeah. If you're bringing something to the table, then even if you are supposed to be banned, then you are likely not going to be banned because they're getting something from you. That's just how life works. And, the US is no exception, just pretty commonsensical. If they're getting or you are helping them in some way, then why should they ban you? You see, hand go, hand come. So you're helping them, they'll help you. So they're going to reconsider some countries if there's a risk of disrupting cooperation on some other priority. Okay. Now, citizens on the list, apparently, let's see so this is for the first one, all travel banned. Now, let me see if the screen I was sharing can load. I'm not sure why this isn't loading. Maybe I should refresh and then we can continue. Okay, now for the orange list, there are 10 countries for which all travel would be restricted but not cut off. In those countries, they're saying that they'll allow affluent business travelers to enter. They could allow that, but not people traveling on immigrant or tourist visas. You see, when it benefits them, for sure, they're going to allow you to come. if it's an affluent business travel, you're an affluent business traveler, you're coming to do a deal, $10 million, $50 million, you're coming to sign a contract, $20 billion, gas contract or whatever, they're going to allow you to come in. Yeah, because they need that money. So they're going to exempt those people from the ban. Okay, now we're back. It looks like whatever was happening is resolved now. Okay, yeah, so for the 10 countries under the orange, travel would be restricted. It will not be cut off. So there's going to be exemptions. Okay, then those citizens, they would be subjected to mandatory in-person interviews in order to receive a visa. We listed them already. Now let's move on to, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's not clear whether people who already have existing visas, they will be exempted from the ban, or if their visas will be cancelled. With the previous travel ban, they didn't cancel or revoke. They just allowed the people to come in, depending obviously on the category and the country. Again, it's not clear again whether they'll exempt green card holders. But previous travel ban that was upheld, as I discussed with you guys, those people were actually exempted. Green card holders were exempted. I know this is a very heavy, boring topic, but we just have to go through it. Let's make it exciting for us. Okay, let's see. All right. I'm not going to go over all these. So when you go back to the yellow list, 22 countries given 60 days to clear up deficiencies. The issues I already mentioned were failure to share with the US information about incoming travelers, and there were inadequate security practices for issuing passports or selling of citizenship to people from banned countries. And you see, so for example, if your country is not sharing information with the US government about the travelers who are coming, then you're going to get banned, or that could impact the ability of your nationals to travel in the future to the US. And then inadequate security practices for issuing passports. There's several countries where it's very easy to just go and buy a passport or get a passport. You just have to show something and then they'll issue with a passport. Those cause security concerns. And then where people could buy citizenship, right? So if let's say Afghanistan is banned and Ghana, it's very easy for an Afghanistan person to buy a Ghana passport. Then it's a loophole around the restriction. Then they can just go buy a Ghana passport or buy a Kenyan passport or buy a South African passport and then enter the US. Now they've circumvented the travel ban, and the travel ban will not be effective. So, the people who are on that list, the draft yellow countries, they are kind of like trying to seal that extra loophole that the banned countries could take advantage of to get back into the US. Okay. All right. Okay, so this is pretty much repeating some of the things we've already discussed. During Trump's first travel ban, courts blocked the first two versions, but they permitted a rewritten ban, which was ban 3.0, ban 4.0. Okay. All right. So we've been able to run through this. Now we can see if we have some questions, and then we can answer as many of them. We've already run out of time, but again, reports are saying that we're expecting the list of the potential countries to be released today. We don't know what that will look like, so we're waiting to see. Okay, so let's see if we do have some questions on Instagram and on YouTube. Okay, so Tilanka Jayawar Dana says if ban, okay, so yeah, Tilanka is on YouTube. If ban imposed, embassies not involved for visa issue for DV category. If I understand you, are you asking that if ban is imposed and a country is not banned, will they issue visas under the DV category? Well, as you guys know, and as we've discussed already, the travel ban is based on the protecting the United States against foreign invasion and national foreign terrorists and whatnot. That executive order mandates that consular officers tighten vetting and screening to the maximum degree possible. And when that happens, there's a lot of delay at the embassies. Cases are not progressing very fast. And the priority for the US embassies is usually not the DV lottery, because the DV lottery is just a game of chance. You got lucky and they can decide to let you come or not. Which is why whenever there's a ban, it can affect some of these DV lottery cases, and sometimes people don't get called for the interview and then they never make it to the US despite winning. Okay, so if there's going to be increased screening and vetting, the embassies are going to be very busy. And so there may be less resources allocated for the adjudication of the diversity visa lottery cases, and it's likely going to impede the issuance of visas under the diversity visa lottery program. The other thing you want to remember is that the US Department of State also released a memo, and it said that now, they released an update, and the update said that they were stopping with the interview waivers. They've restricted, I should say, the interview waivers. Previously, you could do an interview waiver within 48 months of your visa expiration. Let's say you had a B2 visa, it expired maybe 48 months is what, 4 years. Okay, maybe it expired 36 months ago, 3 years ago. You could do a drop box and get your visa renewed without going into the embassy for an in-person appointment or interview. But they stopped that. Now they've restricted it to 12 months, and it has to be the same visa category, right? So previously, if you had maybe a B2 visa, you're trying to do an F1 within 48 months, you probably could do drop off, but now it has to be the same visa category and within 12 months of expiration. So they've narrowed that down, and the impact is that there's going to be a lot more backlog at these embassies. There's just going to be a lot of backlog, because previously people who didn't have to go in for an interview, now they have to go in and interview more people. And that means that there's going to be, again, less resources to adjudicate the diversity visa lottery program, which is time bound, right? Because you always have until 30th September of the fiscal year. So from October 1st, previous year, to 30th September is when you need to get your immigrant visa, or you are out of time completely. And so it's highly likely going to impact issuance under the diversity visa lottery program, which allows up to 55,000 people from around the United States who come from countries with low rate of migration into the US to get visas and to enter immigrant visas to enter the US and live the American dream. So this travel ban, if it indeed happens, it's highly likely going to impact the diversity visa lottery program. Let me see if there are any more questions. Okay, Josie on TikTok says, will I need a visa to travel to Ghana? I have dual citizenship passports. Which country's passports do you have? If you are a US citizen and you have let me see here. If you're a US citizen and you have another passport, another country's passport, let's say you are a US citizen, a Ghanaian citizen, you can travel to Ghana on your Ghana passports. I've recorded several videos on this. You just have to have both passports on you. And I like one of the questions that one of you asked. You guys are really smart, aren't you? One person said, what's the purpose or what's the point of dual citizenship if you have to always get a visa to go to the other country, right? The point of, for many people, they're trying to avoid the hassle of always going for visas. And so that's why they have dual citizenship, to be able to use both passports to enter and leave countries. And so nothing has changed. The law is the law. I've recorded a very lengthy video discussing this and what the law says. You don't need to get a visa in your US passport to leave the US. If you can travel on your other non-US passport. It's fine. Just have your US passport on you because you'll need it to come back in. Okay. Salim Aman says, I'm a US citizen from Afghanistan and my mother has a heart surgery. I'm sorry to hear. If you want to continue with your question. And then somebody says, Easy Smart, are they still approving K1 visas? They still are. We've had several K1 visas approved. People are already here. They've gotten married. Some of them are adjusting statuses. So they are approving, K1 visas. Absolutely. Nothing has changed in that regard. Okay, let me see if there are any questions on LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter. You guys drop your questions. If you are still here, please drop USA, type in USA in the chat box. Let me see that you are watching and you can hear me loud and clear and I'm not talking to myself. Okay, let's see. There's a lot of questions on TikTok. Somebody says, NS Rome says, I'm planning for 2 weeks vacation. Is it safe to travel if you have a 10-year green card? I mean, if you're a green card holder, then you should be able to travel internationally without a problem. Especially if you don't have any criminal records or you don't, you're not in removal proceedings or your green card has not expired or you don't have any major issue. Even when your green card has expired, you can use your expired green card and receipt notice, which extends the green card. But at this time, I mean, I personally would advise that you hold off all non-essential travel. I don't even know which country you're going to, whether it's one of the countries that they're going to be, that could have a potential travel ban or not. I don't know what your history is. If it's non-essential travel, then you might want to reconsider it. So it's up to you, but I would wait until I understand more what's going on. There are several people going in and coming in without a problem. So, but just to know that it could be a risk. You could be one of the people who don't get lucky. I don't know. We're still looking at the situation as it evolves, and then we can determine more. But okay. Let's see. There's a lot of questions here. On TikTok, I'm just trying to scroll. Oh, Susan Omari says, I have a green card. Can I go to Afghanistan? Well, Afghanistan is one of the countries that is on the proposed draft list for all travel restrictions. And so that is concerning. But as we looked at the previous travel ban, they exempted green card holders from the travel restrictions. So, you could be exempted from it. It just depends. It really depends. Again, I would recommend if it's non-essential travel, please reconsider going until we really understand what's going on and how things are going. Okay, so let's see if we have some more questions on Instagram. Guys, drop your questions. Okay, Fauzi Hart says, do you advise adjustment of status or K1 visa for someone who already has any existing B1 or B2 visa? It depends. It really depends. It depends. So, for example, B1, B2 visa purpose is to come in temporarily and leave. If you come in on a B1, B2 visa and then you come and adjust your status, then you may have some questions to answer later on about your intent. Was there fraudulent intent? Did you enter the US on a B2 visa just so that you could get a green card without leaving, right? So I say this to some of my clients that, the US, we take our lines very seriously. If you're going to buy food and there's a long queue, you have to stand in queue. Even if it's Starbucks or McDonald's or water, somebody is going to give you a hot slap if you go and cross. If you try to cut the line, they're not going to be happy with you. It's going to cause a fight. So you have to stay in line, even for the most mundane thing, right? And US immigration, it's a line. When you apply for an immigration benefit, you get a receipt notice that will show you what your priority date is. So let's say you apply for a green card today. Let's say your husband is a US citizen and he files a green card application for you today. Today's date is March 21st, 2025. That is your priority date when they receive your application, and that's your place in line. The people who applied January 2025 are ahead of you in the line. Okay, so the date, your priority date is your place in queue in line. And they try to adjudicate in the order in which the cases are received. So if, as you guys know, you can do a consular processing, meaning you are outside the US and you apply for an immigrant visa, or if you are inside, adjustment of status, you get a green card. If you are inside the US, the process is generally faster. If you're outside the US, because it goes through about 3 separate stages, the process is slower. It goes through the USCIS, then it goes to the National Visa Center, then it goes to the US Embassy. It can take sometimes 3 years, sometimes a little more, or whatnot, right? If you're in the US, it can be shorter. So if you're in the US, you are kind of cutting a line. They see it as trying to circumvent the wait times. If you come in on a B2 visa, pretending that you're here temporarily, and then only for you to apply for a green card. So you could have questions about that. K1 visa is for, the fiancés of US citizens who are based abroad. If you're inside the US, you can't do a K1 visa. The fiancé must be based abroad. Okay, so that necessarily goes through the consular processing method, the K1. I advise based on what the exact circumstances are. I don't know if you're already here or whatnot, but you can feel free to give us a call and we can look at your case and then see. Okay. So Maya Boatin says, can you travel back to the States with your American-born children on B1, B2 visa? So again, I believe the year 2020, the Department of State updated its regulations and stated that birth tourism is not allowed. It is illegal under US immigration law. And so sometimes, people have been able to travel without an issue with their babies, US citizens, and they have B2 visas. Other people could be questioned when they are coming in. CBP could pull them aside and say, okay, show us that, number one, you paid all your bills out of pocket. And other times, they can dig into, did you come in just to get citizenship for your child, which is birth tourism? And if they are not satisfied with the answers, they could put you, expedited removal, remove you from the US, send you back with a 5-year ban. And if you lie, on top of that, you get an inadmissibility ban for misrepresentation or fraud. So it depends. It depends when they were born, circumstances surrounding their birth, and things like that. So Fauzi Hart, please give us a call and I can, take a look at your case and give you more particularized advice. Transferring. Okay, Sheila. Okay, so this is on Facebook. Sheila Bolton Ajiman says someone is in the process of transferring their case to Benin. Should they stop because of the travel ban? Let's see. So yes, Benin is on the yellow list. Now, first of all, it depends on the type of visa that you're applying for. We have immigrant visas, we have non-immigrant visas. For the non-immigrant visas, Department of State itself said that you can apply from any part of the world where you find yourself, a non-immigrant visa, like a B2 visa, F1 visa, You can look up the wait times for an appointment. And if it's shorter than in your home country, you can travel there and apply for non-immigrant visas. The same cannot be said about immigrant visas. For immigrant visas, you can only transfer your case if you have justification for the transfer. Do you have a new job in that country? Are you going to be living there? Let's say your husband is a U.S. citizen in the U.S. You are in Ghana. Your husband applied for an immigrant visa for you and designated Ghana as a consulate where you'll be attending your interview. And then you say that, oh, Ghana, the line is too long. It's taking 2 years, a year and a half, 3 years after documentary qualification. I want to transfer my case to another country where things are faster. What you're going to need to do is to show that you either have a resident permit in the country where the receiving country where you intend to transfer your case, or there's justification, some other type of justification. You have a job contract or something that's going to make you stay in that country for a very long time. The new country, let's say you want to transfer to Benin. You say, I don't want Ghana anymore. You want to transfer to Benin or wherever. Another country where you are going to be, let's say you got a job offer in Benin and it's a 12-month contract and you're going to be there. You can show the contract to show that, oh, I'm not just going to circumvent wait times, but I have a job offer in Benin. So it depends on the type of visa you're applying for. And number two, the travel ban is not about where you get the visa from. It's about what country you are a national of. So if you're a national of Ghana, the fact that you got your visa from Benin shouldn't impact your travel if Ghana is not ultimately part of the travel ban. Okay, so these are some of the things we have to answer. But again, the travel ban can impact processing in the banned countries because there's additional scrutiny. They're looking at a lot of things. So you are thinking that you're circumventing wait times and going to that other country, but you may end up going to face more hurdles and more delays in your travel plans. So it just really depends, but I hope this at least answers. Okay, let's see. Jennifer Mreku on LinkedIn says, is it swift for F1 students to get green card through marriage, please? Oh, it's absolutely. It's very fast, depending on who your petitioner is. Okay, it depends on who your petitioner is. Is your petitioner's immigration status a lawful permanent resident, or are they U.S. citizens? If they are U.S. citizens, it's absolutely fast. If they are green card holders or lawful permanent residents, then it's a different ball game. We have to look at the adjustment of status chart if you are in the U.S. to see whether there's a visa available for you. If your spouse is a green card holder, that will be under the F2B category. So it depends. But generally speaking, if you are an F1 husband is a U.S. citizen, it's very fast. One of the things we're seeing is immigration asking us to show that the person who came in on an F1 visa actually attended school. That's something they're cracking down on. So you should not come in with an F1 visa, study for 2 weeks and then go and marry. The question is, did you come to marry or you came to study? You see? So if you came to study, as my home country people will say, if you're not go to school, look into your book and study. If love comes along the way, that's good. But sometimes, they will ask, okay, we want to see evidence that you were really studying and you didn't just come just to get a green card. Okay, so we have another. Oh gosh, we've exceeded our time. Francis Opoku says, I heard that someone was prevented when I was coming in with American passports, but went out with the different passports. I've recorded several videos on this topic. I cannot verify the story. There's a lot of stories flying around. And somebody said I can't ascertain that. I don't know about that story. What I know is the law is written, and I interpreted the law and explained it. If you're a dual citizen as one person asked me, like, what's the point of dual citizenship if I have a US passport and I have a Nigerian passport and I always have to get a Nigerian visa in my US passport? Then what was the benefit of getting dual citizenship? There's no enjoyment. Dual citizenship should allow you to move freely between countries with different passports, right? Obviously, depending on the rules, but if you have a US passport, you have a Nigerian passport, or a Ghana passport, you don't need to get a visa on your US passport. You can leave the US with your Nigerian passport, Ghana passport, and come back in with your US passport. I've recorded videos on this. Check out our TikTok, our YouTube, all our social media pages on dual citizenship, whether they have to leave the US on their American passports. No, they do not have to leave according to law. I reviewed the law very extensively and explained in a 9-minute video. So take a look at that. Okay. Jennifer Miracle on LinkedIn says, my I-20 is still active because I'm in school. That's wonderful. Keep your CVS record active. Don't have it terminated. Okay, so that you don't fall in trouble. But give us a call if you need our help, and we'll be very excited to assist you on adjusting your status. One of my favorite parts of getting case approvals or getting clients green cards is whenever I see the brochure in there that says "Welcome to America," I almost always tear up. Welcome to America. That brings me so much nostalgia. I remember when I got my green card. That's what my husband told me. Welcome to America. And it was, so it just carries a lot of weight for me. Whenever I see that brochure that says, welcome to the United States of America for my clients, it makes me so happy. So you guys, yes, give us a call. You need our help and we'll be happy to assist you. Okay, guys, I'm out of time. So I'm going to see you all in our next video. We're going to try to be coming on live every Friday at 1 p.m., unless, of course, we have, some emergencies or some other commitments, legal commitments that takes us away, but we'll be trying to be here more often. So make sure you tune in. If you haven't liked our pages, what are you doing? Go like, go follow, go share. And if you've enjoyed this session, please drop me an emoji. It costs $0. Let me remind you, $0. It doesn't cost $10. Okay. I've shared this information with you. In exchange, just drop an emoji. Let me know, like, oh, yes, I understood what you said. That gives us direction to, keep going, or to see that we're communicating with people who understand. So drop me an emoji, US flag, type USA, like, share, comment, anything you can do to let me see that you are active is very appreciated. Thank you guys all so much for joining in, and hopefully I'll see you all in our next video. Okay, take care. Bye-bye. Oh, let me add. So we work with, I see there's a comment here asking, I'm in this state, can you help? Yes, we work with clients nationwide and around the world, all 50 states, all US immigration matters. It doesn't matter where you are, we can assist you with your US immigration matter. So give us a call. We'll be excited to work with you. Thank you guys for joining in. I'll see y'all next week. Bye-bye. Bye, TikTok. And bye, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube.